very good evening and many thanks indeed for joining us. My name is OMONDI and this is QTV Primetime News. It is a Tuesday, the 6th day of December, the year 2022. Tonight, we have a lot in store for you, what is happening in the country and of course beyond our borders. Most importantly, the Nairobi peace process has been concluded today with a communique issued where the M23 rebels together with other armed groups committing to having a ceasefire and peace to prevail in the region. Just a lot for you tonight, but first let's take a look at the stories making headlines tonight. Azimio commits to hold peaceful public engagement meeting at Kamkunji grounds on Wednesday, 7th. Cabinet affirms commitment to scale up support for millions of Kenyans affected by drought. Uhuru louds the progress made as the Nairobi peace process meeting comes to an end. Tough tussle for Mwangaza as Meru MCA's table fresh impeachment motion against her.
This is KUTV Primetime News with OMONDI OTIENO.
Welcome to the broadcast, and I'm not alone. I'm with the company of Maklina Ching, who is our sign language interpreter tonight. Now, the Azimio la Umoja Coalition is expected to hold public engagement meetings in Kamkunji grounds on Wednesday, 7th December. The members, under the leadership of Raila Amolo Odinga and the different party leaders, have said that the meeting will be peaceful as they look to put on pressure on the Ruto administration.
Raila Odinga has stated that the Kamukunji event on Wednesday is a public consultative forum and not a call to public protest. Odinga, who spoke on Monday 5th, said that the meeting will involve all Azimio parties, affirming that the coalition is still intact.
And that the meeting on Wednesday at Kamukunji grounds is a peaceful public consultative meeting. It is not a demonstration or picketing.
We wish to clarify that the party Jubilee is consulting widely with our coalition partners and will support any peaceful and sustained efforts at promoting good governance and accountability in the country.
According to the OCA members, the meeting is in line with Article 37 of the Constitution on assembly, demonstrations, picketing and petition. The opposition chief warned that if Kenya Kwanza administration attempted to disrupt the meeting, it will have itself to blame.
We are not going to engage in any act of thuggery or hooliganism, and no property is going to be destroyed.
Meanwhile, Dagoretti North MP Beatrice Elachi has asked ODM leader Raila Odinga to look at his legacy so that it does not go down to the drain. Her statement comes after the ODM chief announced plans to have a mass protest on Wednesday. Wiper party leader Dr. Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka has warned President William Ruto against pre-rigging the 2027 general elections through the interference of the electoral body IEBC, terming the planned demonstrations as of public good.
Tutaenda Kamkunji on Wednesday, and we mean well for this country. We basically are saying, please do not pre-rig 2027 elections.
Government through President William Ruto have offered to give security to the Azimio public engagements so long as they are peaceful.
Hawa wajamaa ambao wangekuwa wanafanya kazi ya upinzani ni wale wale tunawajua, sio watu wageni kwetu, si ni wale tu wa maandamano wa kawaida. So mimi nimemwambia Profesa Kindiki aulize hawa watu schedule ya maandamano, ndio tuwapatie askari ya kuwachunga.
The opposition was ready to give President William Ruto's administration time to deliver its promises to Kenyans before starting off their criticism. Edward Nyamo, KUTV.
The Cabinet Secretaries convened this morning for their fourth session since inauguration. Now, the meeting was chaired by the head of State President William Ruto at State House in Nairobi. In the session, the Cabinet considers various policy proposals that seek to anchor the implementation of the administration's transformative plan for the nation.
Kenya Kwanza Cabinet convened for the fourth session at State House, Nairobi. The meeting was chaired by President William Ruto on Tuesday morning. The fourth meeting still beckons at a time when hunger is still instilling more anger in the lives of vulnerable Kenyans due to drought, famine, and continued rise in the price of basic commodities. The meeting also noted that about 4.35 million persons are still in need of humanitarian assistance. In light of the persisting drought situation, Cabinet approved the scale-up of drought response aimed at alleviating the suffering of all households affected. The interventions will continue targeting vulnerable individuals and households, with the primary objective of saving lives and preserving livelihoods. Last month, the Cabinet resolved to forego their November salary to aid 4.35 million Kenyans who were hunger-stricken, and through a letter sent to the Secretary of National Steering Committee on Drought Response, Muremi Murage, the Secretary to the Cabinet confirmed that 17 million Kenya shillings had been transferred to the response kitty. As President Ruto and his cabinet are devising ways to end the famine crisis in the country, Ukraine is shipping more than 25 tons of grains to aid East African countries during these dry times. Ojwang Mariam for KUTV Prime Time News.
The National Cohesion and Integration Commission of Kenya has launched the post-election peace assessment report dubbed the Election Bill Number 2022. According to the report, Kenya experienced peace and cohesion in the recently concluded general election, with the Commission now proposing a prioritization of voters' education among other recommendations.
Conflict remains one of the biggest obstacles and source of suffering in Kenya during electioneering period, but the 2022 general election was a different script. Kenyans showed great level of maturity during recently concluded August 9th polls.
Kenyans were rated as the most optimistic people in the world. There was no report of election violence in areas prone to violence, and I will argue that the country has made enormous strides in improving elements of cohesion processes, and in so no longer at the brink of precipice compared to previous elections.
According to NCIC post-election peace assessment report, early warning and response mechanism countering hate speech played a critical role in building a fabric society before, during and after August 9th polls. Although today NCIC rejoices in peace and tranquility seen in the country during electioneering period, the road ahead still remains a bumpy one. The Dr. Samuel Kobia-led team is wasting no time in their quest to bridge the existing gap.
Citizens were the ones who delivered. What a big surprise for us was also the police. This was amazing. We would have never thought they could be present and discreet at the same time, giving reassurance.
At its recommendation, NCIC wants prioritization of voters' education. The Commission also recommends for the safety and wellness of Independent Electoral and Boundary Commission. This is after a number of IEBC officials were assaulted and 2 deaths recorded in August 9th election. The Commission further recommends split of 6 elective posts to be conducted in different days. The NCIC 2022 report dubbed Election Bill Anoma shows increased cases of cyberbullying during electioneering period, hate speech and insecurity of IEBC official. The NCIC in its report faulted the Supreme Court of Kenya, taking issues with language used during presidential election ruling. As Kenyans reflect on 2022 general election, the challenge of reuniting Kenyans due to their political inclinations still remains a tall order. Auma Evans for KUTV, Nairobi.
And 53 armed groups from the Democratic Republic of Congo that met in Kenya for the third East African Community-led Nairobi peace process have agreed to lay down their arms as Kinshasa finds ways to address their grievances, amongst them the removal of the foreign armed groups from the country. This was one of the resolutions made in the final communique read out during the close of the week-long meeting at the Safari Park Hotel, noting that the process of finding lasting peace in the region will take time. The facilitator of the process, the former Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta, said that the resolutions arrived at during the meeting will be seeking to address issues that can be addressed within the short term.
We started somewhere, Nairobi 1 in April, then we had Nairobi 2 where we engaged with armed groups and leaders of the civil society, and today you see most of them here. They maintain the ceasefire. They allowed humanitarian activities to happen in the regions under their control. Today, through the communique, you saw that they're all committed to release what we call child soldiers, and at the same time they're all ready to continue participating to the PDDRCS program, which is a program of disarmament, demobilization.
Kuna jukumu zingine ambazo ni beyond yetu sisi, kwa sababu kuna vikundi pia ambavyo vimetoka nchi zingine, na part ya process hiyo ya Luanda ni kuhakikisha kwamba hivyo vikundi viweze kurudi makwao, viweze kuwa na peace process kama hii ambayo tuko nayo hapa ya Wakongo katika nchi zao, na ndio tuwe na amani katika Kongo, lakini Kongo isiwe pahali ya nchi zingine kuja kupigania.
President William Ruto has appointed 20 High Court judges after receiving a nod from the Judicial Service Commission. Now, in a statement, the JSC said that they had finalized the evaluation process of the candidates interviewed for the positions and were picked based on merit, gender, regional balance, and affirmative action. Among those appointed include Gichoi Patricia, Josephine Mungare, Patricia Nyaundi, Dana Calvedza, Sophie Chirchir, and Moesha Said. Others are Sifuna Nixon, Heston Nyaga, John Chigeti, Peter Mulwa, Lawrence Mugambi, Gregory Mutai, Robert Wananda, Samuel Mukira, Francis Ochieng, Freda Mugambi, and Dennis Mangare. Florence Macharia, Teresia Ching, and Alem Visran are also being appointed. Made last week by the Director of Public Prosecution, the DPP Nurdin Haji, to withdraw the Top Cohen's murder case against his widow Sarah Wairimu and the co-accused Peter Karanja. Now, Cohen's sister had strongly opposed the withdrawal of the case, saying that the family, who are the victims, were not informed by the DPP that he was going to drop the case. Now, the judge, Justice Daniel Ogembo, however, dismissed the objections raised by Cohen's family, noting that they had no merit. Sarah Wairimu was charged 3 years ago after the body of her husband, Top Cohen, a former CEO of the Philips Electronics East Africa, was found dumped in a septic tank at his home in September 2019. And away from that, the members of the Meru County Assembly have initiated another motion seeking to impeach the governor, Kawira Mwangaza. Now, the MCAs once again accused the embattled governor of irregular appointments, nepotism, and enforced unlawful dismissal of the county officials. The notice was read by Dennis Kiogora, who was a member of the County Assembly of Meru, representing Abogeta West, and the minority chief whip, proposing that they move the motion in the County Assembly of Meru. Now, key among the accusations leveled against Kawira Mwangaza include appointing her husband, Mugera Baichu, as the patron of the Meru Youth Service Commission without conducting a transparent and competitive recruitment process. 16 minutes past the top of the hour. It's time we take our first break here on KUTV Primetime News. The moment shall be coming back with the discussion of the night, analytically looking at the Nairobi peace process that was concluded today and was facilitated by the former Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta. Stay with us. See you on the other side.
Vera Beauty and Fashion College is focused on being the leading technical and vocational training institute in the region. Our team possesses in-depth knowledge and extensive experience in the industry, offering thorough training in cosmetology, hairdressing, interior design, creative arts, training of trainers, nail technology, and fashion design, with branches in Nairobi, Thika, Meru, Eldoret, and now in Mombasa. Our courses ensure that learners are completely equipped with knowledge, competency, and employability skills. Enroll today to be a part of a center of excellence.
Wakenya wengi wanataka kubadilisha afya ya Wakenya kuwa bora. Wengine wanafikiria ni kwa kufanya harambee ili kusaidia wale ambao hawawezi kumudu pesa nyingi za matibabu. Ingawaje hili husaidia, cha muhimu zaidi ambacho unaweza kufanya ni kuhimiza kila mtu kujisajili kwa UHC Super Cover. Ni shilingi 500 pekee kila mwezi. Kwa kufanya hivyo, unasaidia Wakenya kufikia bima ya afya wanayoweza kumudu, ili wale wasioweza kumudu mahitaji ya matibabu ya afya wanaweza kupata bima ya afya wakati wowote ule wanapokuwa na hitaji. Iwapo Wakenya wengi watalipa UHC Super Cover, basi Wakenya tutazidi kuwa wenye afya njema. Haya ndiyo mabadiliko tunayotaka. Je, jukumu lako ni lipi? Ni rahisi. Lipia NHIF yako kila mwezi ya shilingi 500 pekee ili kujali afya yako, ya familia na jamii. Iwapo hujajisajili kama memba wa NHIF, tembelea kituo cha NHIF au huduma center yote nchini. Bonyeza *155# kujisajili au download My NHIF app kwa Google Play na Apple Store kujisajili. UHC Super Cover. Sasa sote tuko sawa.
UHC Super Cover, NHIF.
Kenyatta University will hold its 52nd graduation ceremony on Friday, 16th December 2022 at the main campus along the Thika Superhighway. KUTV will provide live coverage of the graduation ceremony from 8 a.m. The graduation ceremony will also be streamed live on KUTV and KU website, Lola app, and all KU social media platforms. For more information, please contact the Office of the Registrar Academic on 020-870-3092 or 0786335111. Or visit the KU website at www.ku.ac.ke. Kenyatta University, transforming higher education, enhancing lives.
Teach us about the Arctic chapter.
So last year, July, you know, when you're by yourself, you think you're doing well, when you have 12 hours of work, you feel like a podcast. You think you're doing well.
Yeah.
And so I was invited to this community, and it's a community of young entrepreneurs who meet every Friday to exchange business through a concept called strong word of mouth. Once you educate yourself, now it's self-awareness. You ask yourself, what are my goals? What is my budget? Where do I want to start? What do I prefer? Do I prefer shares? Do I prefer cryptocurrency? Do I prefer forex? Probably you have answers. You don't like stress, and then you want to do forex.
Our children are at home, schools are closed, and I'm sure that in this festive season that we are getting into, you will need a quick fix, a quick meal, one that is easy to make, one that is delicious, and definitely fancy for the kids. So today we are going to learn how to make a couple of meals when we are using rice. We're going to make 3 types of meals using rice.
Welcome to Engine, an educational show for all the family. Get ready for some exciting learning and fun teaching.
How does a plane fly over the sea? How do the planets float so weightlessly? Let's go! It's technology. Let's go! Science, you and me. Let's go! We're learning every day. Let's go! Engine leads the way.
Welcome back and thank you for staying with us on QTV Primetime News. Time for the discussion. Now, the ongoing conflict in the Eastern DRC, part of the Democratic Republic of Congo, is said to be one of the deadliest conflicts in the world history, having cost approximately 6 million lives since 1996. Now, it's said that the ethnic and geopolitical competition among the DRC, the neighboring communities, and the non-state armed groups fueled the war and conflict. Tonight, we have a sit down with Dr. Wandiri Mwea, who is a lecturer in international relations, conflict and strategic studies, to analytically look at the conflict and the resolutions of the Nairobi peace process that was just concluded today. So thank you so much, Dr. for dedicating your time for this discussion. And now tonight we want to look at the elephant in the house, the conflict in the Eastern DRC, which has been for a very long time been a thorn in the flesh. So the conflict in the Eastern DRC is not something new. It's been there for a very long time and for years. So tell us exactly, what could be the cause of this conflict? Is it the politics that is involved in it? Could it be that now that it's a region that is rich in minerals, those are the economic the economic things that are tied probably to this conflict? What exactly is the cause of this conflict in the Eastern DRC?
Thank you, Modi. I would have to mention a few aspects that have been a major contribution to the problem that is in DRC, and we would be looking at the historical foundations of we would be looking at the historical foundations of Congo as a state since 1960, when it became an independent state, with Joseph Kasavumbu being the president and Patrice Lumumba being the prime minister. And with the assassination of Patrice Lumumba, there was a problem of the coup and counter-coup, and that becomes basically the issue in Congo until the time when Mobutu Sese Seko took over power in 1967, and basically the entire state became extremely volatile because the internal structures of governance became very shaky. We would actually say that even when it became an independent state, I think Congo has not been stable at all. You know, the issue of coup and counter-coups makes a state to be extremely fragile. And then, of course, there is a problem of the politics of exclusion, where most of the people within the Eastern DRC feel that they do not belong to Congo. I will give an example of the Kenya people, or rather Kenya as a state, where some people in the northern part of Kenya felt like they actually do not belong. We would be looking at a situation which was there sometimes back in the coastal region, where they felt that they needed to secede because they felt like they were not well represented. In the same breath, we see that has become a serious problem on the eastern part of Congo. And remember, there are quite a number of groupings which include the Tutsi. Tutsi is an ethnic group that is both in Congo and in Rwanda.
Yes.
And because of that, most of the wars that have been fought by the militia group involve, or rather the Tutsis are basically involved, and that's why you hear that the Rwandese, or the Rwanda being involved in this matter, because when the Tutsis are fighting in DRC, then their brothers on the side of Rwanda basically assist in one way or the other.
Right.
So that, of course, becomes very difficult. And then, of course, number 3, we see that Congo has a very high population of about 100 million people. Think about it, that it's like more than double the Kenyan population. That, of course, becomes very difficult because on the eastern part of Congo, there is a very high level of militancy, courtesy of the population, which, of course, the government has not been able to deal with. Then we have the fourth problem, which is external factors, where the external actors have been now coming in because of the amount of minerals that there are in Congo. And so all those problems compounded, they have made Congo to be extremely difficult.
Right.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. Now, you've mentioned a number of issues that are probably fueling this conflict on the eastern part of the DRC. At some point, of course, you mentioned that the Hutus, the Tutsis rather, who stay in the eastern DRC, and of course their brothers staying in Rwanda. There have been speculations earlier that the Rwandan government is supporting the war in the eastern part of DRC. Are these allegations true? Because when the Nairobi peace process was started the other day, on Monday, we had the East African heads of states committing to work together to ensure that peace prevails on the eastern DRC. And Paul Kagame said that the East African DRC can fully depend on his support in ending this war. And there have been those speculations that the Rwandan government is supporting the war in the eastern DRC. How true do you think these speculations are?
That would be true. Because, of course, these are issues that have been discussed in the yesterdays. Yes. And we know that Congo does not, the militia groups in Congo are basically so many, and most of them you can tell that they are really not originally from Congo. Because we know, like, say, the M23, which is, of course, a thorn in the flesh on the eastern part of Congo, mainly the Tutsis. Now, most of the Tutsis are in Rwanda.
Right.
And we have seen that they are the ones who are really making it difficult for the government army to stand. That explains that Rwanda cannot be far from it. So there could be, that's quite a lot of truth in that, that Rwanda has got a part to play, and it has played strongly in the conflict that is within the eastern part of Congo. Yes.
All right, and still on that, when this Nairobi peace process was when it began on Monday last week, the heads of states came together, and all of them, in their addresses to the communities that were represented on the Nairobi peace process, they committed to working together to ensure that peace, of course, prevails on the eastern part of DRC. And according to the communique that was released today, we are told that 53 armed groups were represented in the negotiation. So the efforts that have been there so far, will they really yield fruits to ensure that peace prevails and we see something like a ceasefire from the armed groups? Because the Luanda Peace Accord also, the resolution that they made was that the armed groups were supposed to there was supposed to be a ceasefire, which has not been seen. Yesterday, a report was released, rather a news was released on the eastern DRC that the M23 rebels had killed more than 200 people on the eastern DRC, meaning that they had not committed to the resolutions made in the Angola Peace Accord. So what we have seen, the Nairobi peace process, could it bring a solution to the perennial issues that have been affecting the eastern DRC?
We could probably be saying that we are on a pathway to peace.
Right.
But it is still far from reach. Why? Because one, there is some measure of commitment from the groups that have been engaging in this process. But again, we know that there are more than 53 groupings or militia groups in Congo. What that means is it is not even half of the group that has been approached, so that now they can engage in this process effectively. Remember, when we talk about the military intervention, that does not necessarily mean that there is going to be peace. What that simply means is this, that when we involve, or rather when a military group is involved, it only means that there can be a temporary ceasefire.
Right.
But what is most important is to make sure that the warlords or the leaders of these militia groups, which could be more than 100, should be brought on board.
Right.
Because these are the people who understand their grievances. We call them the belligerents, or we call them the parties to the conflict. So if they are brought on board on a round table, and then they can air their grievances, it is from that point that then the group that is involved in the peace process can now be able to say, these are the problems that are ailing us, and this is the best way to go forward. But if we bring half of it, what that means is that even if there would be a peace accord that would be realized, slowly but surely there is going to be a very serious fault line, which again will take quite a long time for it to be mended. So in that case, there is quite a lot to be done.
All right, and maybe just to borrow from the address that was given by the Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni during the launch of the third Nairobi peace process here in Nairobi. He said that the problem ailing the Eastern DRC is that firearms are in the hands of wrong people. That is the non-state armed groups. And he said that what would bring a solution would it's two approaches. One is the diplomatic way, which included which would include, of course, the different stakeholders, the different groups, the leaders of these armed groups, together with the communities that are involved on the Eastern DRC, brought together to have negotiations. And probably this is what we saw in the Nairobi peace process, in as much as, yes, not all the armed groups were represented here. Only 53 groups were represented. And on the other side, he said that if diplomacy fails, that's where we would see the military way, of course, coming in to probably solve this crisis. And of course, the commitment you have seen from the East African heads of states, we had two contingents of military from Kenya being sent to, of course, go and help in restoring peace in the Eastern DRC. So is there a way really that probably if diplomacy fails, the military way, could it also bring a solution to this? Could they have, are they strong enough to build a wall against the more than 120 armed groups that are not owned by the state in the Eastern DRC?
We would first be asking ourselves, who is the enabler when it comes to the proliferation of small arms and light weapons? And in this case, we know that the militia groups do not manufacture the weapons.
Right.
It means that there must be a group of people that becomes an enabler in strengthening the militia to have those weapons consistently.
Right.
And the question is, who are these groupings? Of course, it is the states. And that means that there must be the states that have got the interest in having a part of either the minerals in Congo, and that is why they want to have that problem of militia and militia engagement continue.
Right.
Because we know that militia engagement is an economic venture by other means. And when we do not have the proliferation of small arms and light weapons, that means that even with the conflict, it will not be militarized. The only way to sustain this conflict is to have the arms. Therefore, number one, we need we would be asking ourselves, is is there political goodwill from our leaders within the region, so that even when they give, their soldiers to go to Congo so that they can go and keep peace, to what extent are they genuine? Because we know that there are some states which have been amassing a lot of minerals like gold, and yet they do not have the gold mines. The question is, where do they get these minerals from? So because of the interest of different states, then it is quite unlikely that we would get to a point where we see that there are no weapons in Congo, because there are those that want that problem to continue so that, of course, they become beneficiaries. Remember, if you do not have a legal status where you can have your way in one way or the other, then, of course, you create chaos. Now, those chaos will help you to have your objective, because as the chaos continue, then, of course, you have your way out. And I think this is basically the problem in Congo. In fact, if every African or if every leader within the Eastern Africa region has got the political goodwill to see that problem come to an end, why not?
All right. Really, that is making a lot of sense, because from my interaction with, I was actually there with some of these representatives that came from the DRC, and what turned out is, just from a side interview that I was having with one of the citizens, is that the issue of minerals makes people, he didn't mention names, he didn't give me the name of the states probably, but he said that there are people who are coming in the Eastern DRC, meeting the leaders of the rebel groups and committing to supply them constantly with the firearms to ensure that there is war in that region, and what their interest is in the minerals. So if these things are happening in the watch of the states, I mean, the firearms are passing, crossing the borders of different states, getting into the Eastern DRC. So could it be that the East African leaders are speaking with double sides of the mouth? They're lacking this political goodwill to ensure that peace prevails in the eastern part of DRC and, of course, in the whole East African region?
Well, while every leader would not basically be subject to accusation, but of course that does not mean that everyone is speaking from the same script. Apparently, it's not possible for anyone to stand and declare that they are not interested in seeing the peace prevail. But deep down, that can tell you the reason why we say that is because even in the yesteryears, we have seen that some of the conflicts that have prevailed, for example, in Sudan and South Sudan, we know that there were quite a number of groupings that actually did not want to see the war come to an end. Again, we understand that militia groups can be used by different territorial boundaries so that they can be able to foster their interest. And in that case, that is when the militias are promised that they will be supplied with weaponry. So because the militia are also gaining from it, it is basically like it's a win and win take between the militia and some states. Then, of course, they will want to see that continue. And the question then again would be, why is it so difficult to call all these militia groups the leaders particularly? Because if you remember the case of Sudan, for example, in 1993, on the onset of the conflict, the peace process beginning between the former president al-Bashir and the late Garan, in 1993, when they were invited to Kenya by the former and the late President Moi, but al-Bashir said that he was not going to engage with a rebel group. And he actually refused to meet the SPLA leader, the late John Garan. But with the help of the leader of Eritrea, Djibouti, and Uganda at that time, and even to the extent where they threatened him that, well, if he was not going to engage in this process, then of course they were going to get into his territory and they would fight him. He was now persuaded by the late President Moi that they would make their threats true unless he would comply. It was at that point in Kaparak when President al-Bashir accepted that he was going to engage with Garan. Out of it, of course, slowly but surely, as much as it took quite long from 1993 to 2005, but we see that there was something substantial, courtesy of all those members having been allowed to have allowed a roundtable meeting where they discussed the problems that were ailing, Sudan and the larger Sudan at the point now where the peace accord was signed in 2005, and then South Sudan today is a state.
Right.
So in the same way, I think we should be able to see that where the EAC is strengthening these talks so that we see the people who are directly affected by the conflict or them that are engaged in this conflict coming to the table, and not a part of them, but all of them, because if we say that we have got, say, for example, 50, the question is, what is happening with the rest?
Right.
Yeah. So I think all of them should be able to be brought on board.
All right, and maybe borrowing from what you said concerning John Garang, we have seen the DRC President Felix Tshisekedi being adamant to have these rebel groups, of course, coming to meet him on a roundtable to express their grievances for them to probably solve this issue diplomatically. Now, is adamant to refuse to, of course, give a roundtable meeting with the other armed groups, probably. So, what does this really tell us? Is there really hope that without the diplomacy that which probably, if given priority, would solve this crisis? Is there really hope of ending this crisis soon as possible? Because even as noted by the former President Uhuru Kenyatta, saying that so far the resolutions they are made in the Nairobi peace process are short-term solutions. Is there hope that we can have a long-term solution with the kind of leadership we are seeing from Felix Tshisekedi, adamantly refusing to engage in a diplomatic way on a roundtable together with these other armed groups leaders?
Well, his refusal might basically not be a solution. But again, of course, he would be feeling that he is a statesman and that he is a president of a state. But what he also needs to appreciate is that he is feeling threatened, because that is why he has taken the step to come to Kenya so that he can engage in that discussion.
Right.
And we cannot downplay the actions of the militia, because one, think about it this way: they are causing the entire region to be extremely fragile.
Right.
Because as much as Congo has come in with quite a number of benefits in the East Africa Cooperation, namely and not limited to trade, one, because of course the population in Congo is very high. That means that they could be contributing to quite a number of benefits in trade. Number two, you know that Congo is linking the Indian Ocean to the Atlantic Ocean. That means, of course, there is the benefit of the blue economy in that area. Right. And then again, we see that because of the minerals that there are, then that can be a benefit to any East Africa company. If they have got the capacity, then they can be engaged in the extraction of those minerals. Of course, with the legal structures put in place. Now, that said and done, remember there is the flip side of the baggage that Congo has come with. Yes. Because one, we see that there is a problem of the proliferation of small arms and light weapons. That is a big problem, because we are saying that now the region can experience such insecurity as a result. Then two, we know that there is a problem of criminality, and we have said that there are high insurgencies where you will notice that there is very high level of militancy, and therefore that would mean that the chances of the militiamen and the criminals moving around because of the the elimination of the tariff barriers within the region now, then it means that the entire population within the East Africa Cooperation can really be threatened.
Right.
Apparently, we have seen in the recent time that even terrorism has found its way in, even with groups like the ISIS. That means that all those are threats. All that said and done, there is now need for the president of Congo to understand that he is now not going to manage Congo alone.
Sure.
Because these people are not going to make it any easy for him. And of course, there is now need to engage in a dialogue. And what that means is that there is need to legitimize the status of this militia so that they can be assured that they will not be regarded as criminals, and when they engage, they come to the negotiating table, they will now not be subjected to facing legal action.
Right.
In that case, then it is possible for them to discuss effectively, feeling in one way or the other they may be equal partners. Of course, equal in quotes, that they are not seen as criminals, that they are not seen like, like they are not wanted.
Right.
So in that case, they will make very positive contribution. Of course, we may not say that they will be given what they want. That is subject to negotiation. But again, wishing them away and saying you will not discuss with them, that could be a bigger problem.
All right.
Yes.
Now, interestingly, of course, you've also mentioned to us, which would have led to the question that I would have asked next, but you've quite handled that comprehensively. So, as it comes out clearly that really the peace situation in the Eastern DRC is not only of importance to the DRC, but is of importance to the entire East African bloc. So in as much as, yes, the leaders are trying to ensure that peace prevails in the region, is there a way that for the rest of us, the rest of the countries, that is Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, all the countries that are within the East African bloc can join hands? Is there, how can they also engage, apart from leaving it to the leaders, to ensure that probably we amass our efforts to ensure that peace also prevails in the Eastern DRC, which of course will bring peace to the entire EAC region?
Well, there are quite a number of avenues that can be explored to see that peace prevails in the region, and particularly in Congo. One, there could be quite a number of strategies that can be put in place. And one is diplomatic engagement, I will say, which would include personality engagement. Personality in this sense that I will take a case of Sudan. When at the point when the conflict was really getting out of hand, there was the intervention of the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, IGAD. That time, the former and late President Moi was the chairperson, and he asked one of the experts, namely the retired General Lazarus Sumbeo, to come on board so that he could begin that process. And of course, Sumbeo did a lot of work because he is a person who was able to travel to quite a number of countries, asking not just for mainly what he was asking for. One is financial help, and two, he also needed to understand what are other structures that can be put in place to see that there was peace. And of course, quite a number of personalities came on board, which included ambassadors and even presidents of quite a number of states. Then when he came now, he was with the strength of every state that was supporting him, either directly or indirectly, he was able to ask that those people who are mainly involved in those conflicts would come on board. And the first person was, of course, Garan. The second person was Al-Bashir. The third person was Osman Ali Taha, who was the first second vice president in Sudan. At one point, he had actually refused to come. But then sanctions would now be put, according to Sumbeu, and finally he showed up. Of course, there were so many other people, and that is why it took quite a long time, although even the financial problem was also there, because at the point when it was beginning, the Kenyan Treasury had to give IGAD about 10 million shillings to be able to start the process.
Right.
So one, we can be called as resource persons in which way? So that we can be able to provide a blueprint on how best should this process be carried out. Because you see, you can see the goodwill of the leaders, but again, is the process right? Yeah, so if we say let's take the military and let every state or let every partner of the EAC bring in military so that they can go to Congo, are we really solving a problem? The answer may not be so, because basically what we are doing is putting a veneer, above very many problems below.
Sure.
So those issues need to be unearthed so that we can, so that there can be a script detailing what is going to be done and how should that process begin. And this can only be done mainly by experts.
Right.
So with the experts now being strengthened by the state structures, apparently that will work. Yeah.
All right. Daktari, I think for the benefit of time, we wrap it up at this point, and that has been so insightful, of course, bringing an academic angle on how we can approach the perennial conflicts in the Eastern DRC. And all we are hoping really that peace prevails in the region, which of course will also mean that we have peace in the entire East African community, and the trade and all the benefits that comes with the DRC joining EAC, of course, shall be enjoyed in the entire region. Thank you so much, Dr. for your input on this.
Thank you, Modi.
All right, and away from that, the 10-member cabinet nominees appeared before the county assembly for vetting on Tuesday, 6th December. The nominees include Stephen Mwangi, who is a nominee in the Built Environment and Urban Planning, Michael Gumo of the Innovation and the Digital Economy, Brian Mulama of the Talent, Skills Development and Care, Patrick Mbogo of the Mobility and Works, together with Charles Kerich, who was a nominee in the Finance and Economic Affairs, Ibrahim Auma Nyangonga of the Administration and on Personnel, Rosemary Kariuki of Business and Hustlers Opportunities, Maureen Jerry of the Green and Nairobi Environment, Water, Food and Agriculture, Anastasia Nyalita of the Health and Wellness, together with Susan Silantoi, who was nominated for the Inclusivity, Public Participation and Customer Service. Now, the Central Bank of Kenya has announced the introduction of charges on transactions between mobile money and bank accounts. The new charges will be significantly lower than what was there before. Now, transfers from bank accounts to mobile money wallets reduced by an average of 61%, while mobile money wallet to bank account by an average of 47%. Now, the monthly value of transaction increased from 162 million worth of 234 billion to 440 million transactions worth 399 billion. Now, the monthly value transaction of people and banks increased from 18 million worth of 157 billion to 113 million worth of 800 million, an increase of 527% and a 410% increase respectively. Now, the tariff for the pay bill reduced on the average of 50%, while the charges on bank transfers reduced on an average of 45%. Let's now take a look at what's happening in the world of sports. Now, the Kenyan Premier League side, Police FC, have parted ways with the head coach Sam Omolo just days after assistant coach and the former Kenyan international Musa OTIENO stepped down from his role. The development comes at a time when the law enforcers have had tough start of the season, losing their first two opening matches against KCB and Kakamega Homeboys. Meanwhile, former Kenya Sony Sugar head coach Francis Baraza will take charge with the immediate effect. Now, the tactician recently parted ways with Kagera Sugar of Tanzania. Now, FC Leopards head coach Patrick Ayusems has challenged the manager in the manner in which the center referee Josiah Omondi officiated the FKF Premier League match against the Tusker FC at the Kasarani Stadium on Sunday. In an interview, the Belgium expressed his shock at an occasion where the couple of Tusker players was seen surrounding the referee while allegedly assaulting him while going unpunished. Osems has blasted Omondi for failing to take action against the culprits while describing the occasion as shame to Kenyan football. The Brewers now face the prospect of having some of their players undergoing disciplinary action. Finally, the World Cup round of 16 will be wrapped up tonight with Portugal meeting Switzerland at the Lusail Stadiums. The Navigators will be aiming to qualify for the quarters, where they have a chance of building on their 2006 record, where they were knocked out in the semis. At the same time, Portugal records goal scorer Cristiano Ronaldo hopes to score his first ever World Cup knockout goal, which would in turn send his total tally to 120 international goals. On the other hand, Switzerland will be hoping to make it to the final 8 for the first time since 1954. And with that, we're going to wrap here on KTV Primetime News. Many thanks indeed for your valued company throughout the bulletin. Our sign language interpreter tonight has been Makrin Aching. My name is OMONDI OTIENO, and for the first time, I've enjoyed watching World Cup. I watch World Cup, of course. The good tournaments which are played with the smaller balls. For the first time, I'm enjoying watching the tournament with a bigger ball, where we've seen, of course, at the penalty shootouts, Spain being sent home, and our African giants, of course, standing out and making us stand with our heads tall. Right, Morocco is an African team, and we are proud of their performance at the international tournament. My director is telling me she's really proud of Spain, in as much as, yes, Spain has been sent home, she's probably also going home. Don't know that she'll come back, because Spain are not coming back anywhere. You have a great night as we get to follow up on the remaining tournaments of the World Cup. See you.